For decades, Jack Benny's legendary vault was treated as a joke, an iconic part of his comedy persona. Fans laughed as he protected his imaginary fortune behind 12-inch steel doors, booby traps, ancient guards, and absurd security systems. But behind all the humor, there was always a quiet whisper. What if the vault was real? Recently, a team of archivists working on a preservation project at the Benny estate finally gained access to a sealed storage chamber beneath the property, one that hadn't been opened since the 1970s. What they found inside has shocked researchers, historians, and even members of Benny's own family. After removing layers of dust and cutting through old reinforced locks, they discovered an underground room larger than anyone expected. The first thing they noticed were the shelves, hundreds of them, lined with boxes labeled only with dates. Some boxes contained film reels no historian had ever heard of. Others held handwritten notebooks, draft jokes, monologues, and sketches that Benny never performed publicly. Many of the jokes were surprisingly modern, sharper and more personal than anything he shared on radio or television. But in the far corner of the vault sat something entirely unexpected. A small wooden chest secured with brass hinges. Unlike everything else, it wasn't labeled, catalogued, or mentioned in any estate documents. When they opened it, they found objects so unusual that the entire team fell silent. Items that hinted at a private struggle Benny never spoke about. Letters he wrote but never sent. Photographs taken in moments he kept hidden from the world, and one object, wrapped in cloth, that researchers still refuse to publicly describe until authentication is complete. One thing is clear. Jack Benny's vault wasn't just a comedy prop. It was a secret he protected his entire life. The researchers had expected an interesting afternoon, maybe even an exciting one, but nothing like this. When they entered Jack Benny's long-sealed vault, the initial thrill of discovery quickly gave way to an unnerving sense that they were stepping somewhere they were never meant to go. The air alone, thick, stale, untouched for half a century, made the room feel less like a storage area and more like a mausoleum of secrets Benny himself had tried to bury. Their flashlights moved slowly across the concrete walls, revealing a pristine order that contradicted the comedian's famously casual, light-hearted persona. Every object inside the vault had been placed with precise care. Film canisters arranged alphabetically, scripts stacked according to year, a violin case positioned perfectly parallel to the shelving. This wasn't the chaos of an old entertainer's forgotten archives. This was a curated, controlled environment. A place Benny clearly valued, a place he visited alone. But the deeper the team explored, the more the room seemed to whisper that its true purpose had never been about comedy, preservation, or even nostalgia. Something heavier lay beneath it all. Something Benny had deliberately hidden from everyone, even his closest friends. The moment the first researcher noticed the wooden chest in the far corner, the entire atmosphere shifted. Everything else in the vault was neat, categorized, logical. But that chest, it didn't fit. It didn't match the era, the aesthetic, or the purpose of the room. It was older, far older, constructed from dark cedar worn smooth by age. Brass hinges tarnished to a murky green. A lock that looked hand-forged rather than manufactured. And unlike the other objects, which sat proudly on open shelves, this chest was tucked behind a stack of film reels, as if Benny had intentionally tried to conceal it. "What's that doing here?" One of the archivists whispered. No one answered. They simply stood there, staring at it, sensing that whatever lay inside is what Benny never wanted anyone to see. The lead researcher crouched beside the chest, running a hand lightly across the lid. "This wood is at least a century old," he muttered. "Maybe more." He tugged gently at the brass lock. It didn't budge. This wasn't a prop. This wasn't for show. The room fell silent again, as if even the dust motes paused. Finally, someone asked, "Do we open it?" Protocol said yes. Instinct said no. But curiosity, especially the kind that comes with legendary names and hidden vaults, has a way of silencing caution. After several minutes of quiet debate, they decided to cut the lock. The metal groaned as it snapped open, the sound echoing through the concrete chamber like a warning. The lid stuck at first, as if it had fused with time. But with a gentle push, it lifted, and what lay inside stunned the team into complete silence. Instead of money, jewelry, or rare collectibles, the chest was filled with letters. Hundreds of them. Bundles tied with frayed ribbon, envelopes yellowed with age. Some addressed in Jack Benny's familiar looping handwriting, but most of them addressed to him. The topmost letter immediately caught their eye. The name on the envelope was written in elegant script, Mary Livingstone, Jack's wife. His partner on stage, on radio, in life. Their marriage had always been a subject of fascination for fans. Charming, playful, public. But behind the scenes, Hollywood whispered endlessly about tensions, separations, and private struggles the couple never acknowledged. For decades, Jack Benny's legendary vault was more than just a recurring joke. It was a cultural myth. Fans laughed at the exaggerated stories of his unbreakable security, the ancient guards, the booby-trapped corridors, and Benny's famously tight grip on every last penny. But until recently, no one truly knew what, if anything, was actually inside. It all changed when a team of archivists, historians, and preservationists were finally granted permission to open the real vault preserved beneath the old NBC studio grounds. And what they found inside didn't just surprise them. It shocked them. From the moment the reinforced steel door groaned open, the team realized the stories hadn't been exaggerated. They were understated. The vault was untouched, perfectly preserved like a time capsule, sealed in the golden age of Hollywood. Dust didn't just settle, it waited. And in that darkness, researchers uncovered items no one ever believed existed. Handwritten scripts Benny abandoned at the last second, early radio recordings thought permanently lost, secret correspondences with entertainment titans, and personal journals revealing a side of Jack Benny the public never saw it. But the most astonishing discovery wasn't the comedy material or the memorabilia. It was an object locked inside a smaller inner chamber, wrapped precisely the way Benny left it decades earlier. An object tied to a private mystery he never shared publicly. Experts say this single item could rewrite his legacy and completely transform what we believed about one of America's greatest comedic icons. What was this item? Why was it sealed away? And why did Jack Benny never mention it, not even to his closest friends? The answers, uncovered only now, reveal a truth far stranger and more emotional than any radio gag or television punchline. For decades, Jack Benny's vault was more myth than reality. A running gag that had fans laughing across radio waves and television screens. Benny's famously frugal persona, the raised eyebrow, the drawn-out pauses, and, of course, the ever-present vault, became symbols of a comedy legend who mastered timing and suspense. But beneath the laughter, behind the polished veneer of show business, the vault was very real. And for over 50 years, it remained untouched. Untouched even by historians, biographers, or the closest friends Benny had trusted. Until now. The morning the vault was finally scheduled to be opened, a small group of researchers, archivists, and studio historians gathered outside the NBC lot, where Benny had recorded many of his legendary shows. The air was crisp, and there was a quiet, almost reverential tension that seemed out of place on a site normally buzzing with crew and cameras. No cameras were allowed. Benny's estate wanted the first glimpse to be private. Every step toward the vault felt deliberate, careful, as though the decades-old steel doors themselves were aware that their moment of revelation had come. When the archivist turned the key and the door creaked open, the first thing everyone noticed was the smell: aged paper, polished metal, and something oddly familiar, like the scent of a theater long forgotten. The room beyond was dim, the shadows long, and the sense of history palpable. Dust motes floated in the thin beams of sunlight that cut through small cracks in the ceiling. But more than dust, the vault seemed to contain intention, as if every item inside had been placed carefully, deliberately by Benny himself. At first, there were the expected items: old scripts with handwritten notes in Benny's precise penmanship, recording reels that had long been thought lost to time, and photographs capturing moments of both comedy and candid backstage life. Researchers whispered excitedly, imagining the insights these materials might give into the process, the jokes, the timing, and the genius behind a man who seemed so effortless in performance. But the deeper they went, the stranger it became. Beneath stacks of paper and crates of props, they found personal letters. Letters Benny had never sent, drafts of correspondences with friends, rivals, and even high-profile figures in Hollywood. Some letters hinted at business dealings, others revealed sides of Benny completely unknown to the public. His generosity, his insecurities, and, most astonishingly, a profound private struggle that seemed entirely absent from his comedic persona. And then came the inner chamber. A small, reinforced wooden box sat on a pedestal, sealed tight. Unmarked except for Benny's signature, this box had never been mentioned in biographies, interviews, or memoirs. When the researchers carefully opened it, they found an item that immediately silenced the room. It wasn't a prop, it wasn't a joke. It was something deeply personal, something that spoke to a part of Benny's life he had guarded jealously. No one outside the vault yet knew what it was, but the team realized they held something far greater than lost scripts or rare memorabilia. They held a key to understanding the man behind the legend, a Jack Benny the world had never truly seen. For historians, comedians, and fans alike, this discovery promised to rewrite history. The laughter, the pauses, the legendary timing, they all carried a deeper story now, one locked away for decades, waiting patiently for the right moment to be revealed. By the time the vault doors were closed again, the researchers walked away in stunned silence. The jokes, the sketches, the public persona, everything was about to take on new meaning. And somewhere in that quiet lot, under the weight of decades and the shadows of a comedy legend, Jack Benny's secrets had finally come to light. The inner chamber had been discovered almost by accident. Hidden behind stacks of scripts and crates of old props, it was small, unassuming, yet undeniably important. Sitting atop a pedestal was a sealed wooden box, carefully crafted, with Jack Benny's signature scrawled across it in black ink, a mark of authenticity that immediately sent a ripple of excitement through the team. No one had ever seen it before, not in biographies, interviews, or even in private collections. Benny had hidden it, and now, for the first time in more than half a century, it would be revealed. Opening it was a meticulous process. Gloves on, magnifying glasses ready, every movement measured. The box creaked slightly as the lid lifted, releasing a faint scent of cedar and old paper, a smell that seemed to carry the weight of history itself. Inside, there was a single object, wrapped carefully in a faded silk cloth. No props, no memorabilia, no comedy scripts, just this one item, deliberately preserved, deliberately hidden. When the cloth was removed, the room fell into an almost reverent silence. It was not what anyone expected. There were no recordings, no letters, no artifacts of fame. Instead, it was a personal diary. Small, leather-bound, worn by time, with pages that had never been opened in decades. Even before anyone read a word, there was a palpable sense that this diary contained the truth of Jack Benny. Beyond the jokes, the stings, and the comedic timing, this was Benny unmasked. As the researchers carefully turned the pages, they discovered entries filled with emotion, reflection, and vulnerability. One passage described his fear of failure, despite immense success. Another revealed moments of quiet generosity that contradicted his famously stingy public persona. There were sketches of personal dreams never pursued, notes on relationships with friends and family, and confessions about the pressures of maintaining a public image that demanded humor at all costs. But it wasn't just the personal revelations that shocked the team, it was what they implied. The diary hinted at secret correspondences, private negotiations, and even hidden charitable work that had never been made public. Jack Benny, the man who the world had laughed with, had quietly shaped lives, helped careers, and made sacrifices that remained invisible to the public eye. And then there was the final entry, dated just weeks before Benny passed away. The handwriting, slightly shaky, conveyed urgency and a sense of peace, a reflection on life, on legacy, and on the duality of public and private identity. It concluded with a line that seemed almost like a message to the future. May they one day understand the man beneath the mask. Historians leaned back, stunned. This was no ordinary diary. It was a roadmap into the soul of a man who had made millions laugh, yet carried his own silent burdens. The team realized that these pages could rewrite Benny's legacy, not just as a comedic genius, but as a complex human being, someone far deeper than the vault gag that had entertained generations. Outside the vault, the world remained unaware. Fans continued to enjoy Benny's shows, laughing at the familiar punchlines, oblivious to the hidden truths that had lain untouched for decades. But for the researchers, every page read was a revelation, a bridge connecting the public persona to the private man. Every note, every confession, every reflection offered a new perspective on how Benny had mastered not just comedy, but the art of living a life in the shadows of fame. By the time the diary was carefully returned to its silk wrapping and the vault doors closed once more, the team understood the significance of what they had uncovered. They had entered a private world, touched by genius, filled with humanity, and preserved with care. And now, as historians and archivists began to document, analyze, and interpret the contents, one truth became unmistakably clear. Jack Benny was far more than a laugh. Far more than a vault, far more than a public persona. He was a man whose secrets had waited decades to finally be revealed, and the world would never look at him the same way again. Even after uncovering the diary, the researchers felt the vault had more secrets to reveal. The wooden box, though opened and explored, hinted at a deeper enigma. Beneath the diary, tucked carefully under layers of velvet lining, lay a smaller compartment. A hidden section, almost invisible to the naked eye. No one had expected it. Benny, it seemed, had hidden a secret within a secret. Opening this concealed compartment required a delicate touch. The archivist's hands trembled slightly as they lifted the small latch. Inside was an object wrapped in thick, waxed paper, its edges frayed but still perfectly preserved. There were no labels, no notes, nothing to explain its significance. And yet, the aura surrounding it made everyone in the room pause. Something about it radiated importance. A sense that this item was far more than it appeared. When the paper was removed, the object emerged. A small, ornate music box. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, an artifact that could have belonged in any household. But the craftsmanship was exquisite, the kind that suggested it had been custom-made, perhaps by a master artisan. Intricate carvings adorned its sides, tiny, delicate figures that told a story when studied closely. And engraved on its underside were the initials J.B., alongside a date from the 1930s, decades before Benny became a household name. Curiosity turned to awe as one of the historians gently wound the key. The box sprang to life, playing a haunting, delicate melody. But it wasn't just the tune that shocked the team. As the music played, a hidden compartment within the box popped open, revealing something entirely unexpected. Photographs and letters. They were personal, intimate, and deeply private. Some depicted Benny with people who had never been documented in public accounts, friends, family members, and mentors he clearly valued deeply. Others were letters expressing gratitude, apologies, or confessions he had never shared. One letter in particular drew gasps. Written in Benny's unmistakable handwriting, it spoke of a secret relationship. A person he had loved profoundly, but never revealed to the public. The tone was tender, sometimes sorrowful, hinting at sacrifices Benny had made to protect this individual, and by extension, to preserve the image he carefully curated for the world. The letter ended with a haunting plea. May they know one day how much they meant to me, even if the world never does. The music box, simple at first glance, had become a time capsule of emotions Benny had hidden from the world. It revealed a side of the comedian no audience member ever glimpsed. Vulnerability, deep affection, and an almost painful devotion to keeping his private life private. For researchers, it was both thrilling and heartbreaking. A window into a man who had mastered the art of laughter while quietly carrying a lifetime of unspoken truths. As the team continued examining the contents, they realized the significance of the find. This was more than memorabilia or artifacts. It was a testament to the human side of a man the world thought it knew. The public saw Jack Benny as frugal, witty, perfectly timed, and untouchable in his humor. But here, in this music box, was the evidence of someone tender, emotional, and profoundly human. The implications were staggering. If these items were ever made public, the world would see Benny not just as a comedic legend, But as a man who loved deeply, sacrificed silently, and hid truths behind humor to protect both himself and those he cared about. For the first time, the researchers understood the duality of Benny's life. The stage persona, larger than life, and the private man, quietly profound and infinitely more complex. By the time the music stopped and the box was carefully rewrapped, the team sat in silence. The vault, once a symbol of jokes and frugality, had revealed its true secret. The heart of Jack Benny himself. A man whose laughter had brought joy to millions had also carried mysteries that would only now, decades later, come to light. And as the researchers left the vault that day, one truth lingered. The world had laughed at the legend, but it was only beginning to understand the man. The vault had revealed much more than anyone anticipated. What started as a curiosity, a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the props and scripts of a comedic genius, had become a journey into Jack Benny's soul. The diary, the hidden music box, and the intimate letters painted a portrait of a man far more intricate and tender than the public.